Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning into Mumbai Angels Network Reboot, Navigating the New Normal session. Before we begin, I request all of you to please keep your devices on mute so that this will help us to hear the speakers clearly. Also, if not required, if you can turn off your WhatsApp so that we don't hear any notification sound. We at Mumbai Angels Network have always believed in leading from the front and present a seven-part series discussing the key aspects of issues currently impacting the startup ecosystem and how we, collectively, can take steps to overcome them. This session is divided into a panel discussion of 40 minutes, followed by a Q&A for 20 minutes. To participate in the Q&A, I request all of you to send in your questions via chat, which our team will curate and then present to the panelists to get them addressed. The session today is on leading your business through crisis, which will delve into aspects of steering a business through these turbulent times. Our panelists for today are Kishore Ganji, who is an angel investor and mentor at Astia Ventures. Kishore has made over 100 investments in startups based in India, US, and Singapore. Some of the key investments are in Adipar, Open Bank, Google, Badam Teas, Innovactive, Gigadyne, Goodera, and Zenome. The second panelist for today is Abhas Khanna, who is an angel investor and associate director, global commercial banking at HSBC. Abhas is an accomplished senior professional with a track record of high performance in the financial services sector, having worked in India, Hong Kong, and the UK. An entrepreneur, his current role focuses on accelerating growth by bridging and merging traditional banking with new ways of working and technology. He became an angel investor in 2017 and has invested in over 10 companies to date. He actively works with talented startup founders and high potential small businesses, providing capital and mentorship to enable achievement of business goals. The session for today will be moderated by Nandini Mansinka, co-promoter and CEO at Mumbai Angels Network. Nandini has over 20 years of experience across investment banking, media, and education sectors. She has also founded DigiBooster, India's first data-driven influencer marketing platform. Nandini has held leadership positions in the investment banking research group at JP Morgan India. Prior to JP Morgan, she was part of the corporate strategy and finance group at Times of India Group. I would like to thank our panelists for their time and consideration for this session and for giving us and our audience the opportunity to hear their insights. Another quick reminder for all the participants to have their microphones on mute. Please do send in your questions via chat and we will try and get them answered by our panelists. Without further ado, let's dive into the session. Over to you, Nandini.
Thank you, Shivangi. Thank you, Abhas and Kishore, to agree to be on this panel with us. So I've been discussing with the team over the past couple of weeks, saying, how do we respond? What do we do? So there are two ways that one can respond to the current situation, and at two ends. One is where you're in fear and confusion and saying, "Oh, everything is ending, and what do we do?" And the other is you start saying, "All right, this is the new normal, and how do we navigate?" So you look at the problem and then you say, "All right, what is the solution?" And we at Mumbai Angels believe that's the only way to do this. We are at the forefront, and we will ensure that we will keep coming back with solutions and discussion forums to figure out how is it that we as a nation, and as a nation that has so many startups coming, actually navigate this and come out looking much better than we did when this started out. So on this very positive note, Abhas and Kishore, what we've done is that, we'd ask all the participants to send us questions, and we've curated some of these questions, and I'm going to, ask this question to each one of you. Once you've given the answers, I'll then ask the participants to send in more questions. So what I would request each participant is to keep sending questions through the program. Just write it down and send it. And the team is going to compile it so that when the Q&A portion comes, we can take as many questions as we can and make sure that this 1 hour is the most productive that you spend during the day. So the first one, that I want to talk about, and I think it's the top of the mind for everybody who's looking at their own business and who are trying to figure out what to do are looking at whatever you have seen till now. What are your top 3 advice for all startups to survive the current storm? Abhas, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you so much for having us and giving the opportunity for founders and investors across the board to come together to understand how to face the situation. I think collective action is the only action forward. So thank you, Nami, for organizing this. Uh, I think that at the crux of this, we have to understand that this is a multi-dimensional, complex problem, right? The historical downturns have been purely financial related, but this has a certain element associated with the virus itself. But I think as businesses, the 3 things that I've been talking through and through with my portfolio companies essentially comes down to how do we ensure sustainable growth and survival. The first thing that I've been stressing on is knowing yourself. Every company needs to drill down and actually understand what are the aspects that they are truly impacted by. Uh, Different sectors are impacted differently. If you look at offline retail and you look at tourism, they've been impacted very severely. So the actions that the founders would need to take there is very different to say a sector which has actually got positive tailwinds like edtech or collaboration, etc. So the one thing that every founder needs to do is to understand what exactly is relevant for their business. There is no out of the box solution, and it's really boils down to taking a decision based on hard facts. So that is the one thing that I think is extremely critical. The second thing is empathy. Everyone is in this together, whether it be suppliers, customers, stakeholders like investors. Having honest discussions and trying to navigate the way forward, I think is something that needs to be very critical. Working in isolation will not help, and founders need to be very clear as to what are the shortfalls that they have, and wherever they need to ask for help, they need to do so. So that is something that is extremely critical as well. And the third thing that I would suggest is just being aware and adapting. As a business that I run in my domain, the plan that I had 1 week ago isn't relevant today. So the reality is that you need to constantly look at your plans, your numbers, strategize, do scenario planning, and just understand what levers to pull. There's a lot of great material out there that is available on this subject. So I would suggest founders to look at that material and just understand what levers to pull which are relevant for their business. So 3 areas: knowing yourself, acting with empathy, and having honest discussions, and awareness and adapting. So I think these are the 3 things that I would suggest to my portfolio companies.
Yeah, great. Kishore, what are your views on this?
So we all agree that we are in a very tough time. So we don't know how long it's going to take that we come out of this. So I think the best thing is to be very cautious and plan for the worst. And if we come out of this early, then that's very good. Then you would come out very strong. What I would focus on is spend as if you're not going to raise any more money for the next 6 to 10 months. Because I think it might take more than that before you can raise money. So be very prudent with the money that you're spending. Spend as if each dollar that you're spending is the last dollar that you have. Definitely look at unit metrics. Forget about all the vanity metrics that we've been measuring, because the business has to sustain by itself. Okay, so the vanity metrics take aside. I think you will focus on unit metrics profitability. The third thing I would say is communicate with your customers, with your employees, and with your partners. I think it requires great deal of sacrifice from your employees to get over this, because you might have to slash some jobs or do some pay cuts. Whatever it is, make sure that the runway stays longer. 6 to 12 months is what is ideal, but if you can drag it to 18 to 24 months, then you can come out very strong the other side. Because some companies who are not doing that, I think they will not be able to sustain, and you'll be in a better position to capitalize that. So I think if you're doing any cuts or anything, my suggestion would be do it in one stretch, and don't prolong it, and don't do it in phases. Just do it in one stretch and get over with it, and communicate with your team members, tell them why you're doing this, and what the purpose of this is. and I'm sure they will understand. But do it in one stretch. Again, to summarize, try to stay in this for long.
Yeah, I completely agree, Kishore. So what we are seeing in our portfolio and what we are recommending and even in our own business, I think the three things that one needs to focus are, just the things you guys said. Cash is king, right now, whether you have to have a very strong view on what your revenue is going to be over the next 6 months and be as conservative as you can be. Look at your total reserves, and there is no way you can run out of money right now, because the guy who runs out of money is gone. It doesn't matter how good the business model is, right?
That's true.
The other bit that I'm seeing and I think is a thing to look at is maybe it's time for some of the businesses to rethink their business model.
Yep.
So like I can give you our example. We are such a on offline showcase driven business model, and the minute this happened, the first thing we did is saying, let's go virtual. This reboot series that we are doing is very similar. We were, you might be aware that we were planning to do something called Hustle, which was like a 2-day on ground event, and we said, no, that's not going to happen. So what do? You quickly change yourself. So that bit, in whatever business you are in, you need to start thinking, is there a twist I need to make? Is there a slight pivot I need to make? And which could either just be very, very, short term, that something you can work for only for 3 months. Like, say, for example, if you're a delivery company, why not just deliver groceries for the next 3-4 months when there's a lockdown? Let's do that.
Yeah.
Or it could be a slightly longer term. You might just find that, there is a whole new way of doing business, which earlier you were not looking at. The third thing that I think is very important is to remain top of mind in front of your customer, whichever way, doesn't matter what business you are in. Like I was seeing some other companies, they're doing such fabulous jobs. So, I thought I saw Saffron Stays. It's got, very little that it can do to actually be in front of its customer. But what it does is, okay, we're launching a 7-day family challenge. Why don't you guys watch a movie, a Shah Rukh Khan movie together and send us pictures? It's got nothing to do with Saffron Stays.
That's true.
But just because you do something like that, you are a brand that continues to remain in front of your customer. We cannot afford right now, because you can't meet people face to face, to say, oh, suddenly 3 months later, you can't emerge out of the woods and say, okay, here we are. So
I think you have to be very creative about how you stay in touch with your customer. You don't want to spend those marketing dollars, but do things like what you have said.
Yeah.
So that you're relevant and you're on top of their mind when the time comes that they're ready to work with you or ready to order something from you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the next question, I think what's happening is that there are some businesses that are seeing a sharp decline in their revenue, some which are maintaining a certain run rate just because of the kind of business they are in. And, it comes from the point I made earlier. How should I think about reinventing or modifying my product or service for growth or to stay relevant? What could be your advice on something like that? Abhas, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So again, as stressed by Kishore and yourself, runway is absolutely key, right? So if you have 3 months runway, you have to focus to get it to 6. If you have 6, 12 to 18, it's just about trying to get that in. With regards reinventing your business, again, I think that there are multiple aspects that you could look at. First is having a realistic idea of demand. I think that's the absolute key. The time to have products that are not must-haves are gone, because at the end of the day, you only need to focus on your core competencies. And the ideas that you can adopt to increase your top line is, can you sell more to the existing customer that you have? Can you cross sell more? Can you upsell? Can you look at a new channel for sales, right? If it's a particular segment that you've been targeting in the past, does it make sense to look into another segment or a growing sector which right now has positive tailwinds? Other than that, can you look at probably reinventing your product design? All these things which can help effectively boost your presence and build your brand as well. Because the one thing, as you also pointed out, is to remain relevant, you need to constantly push out your message. You don't want to be in a position where you're committing to do something and you can't do it due to the wider lockdown. So it's about trying to utilize, social media, online forums, etc., to be as relevant as you can be. So those are certain aspects that I think can help businesses going forward.
Kishore?
Yeah. So while there's a lockdown, it doesn't mean that you're shutting down and just taking a pause. I think this is the time to rethink, strategize, and reevaluate everything that you have done. Right. It's a great opportunity to come back strong. So it's giving that time for you to rethink. And obviously, the best thing is to reutilize your resources effectively. Obviously, you're going to cut down on the marketing cost because it's not going to create any demand right now. And you have to take it that the demand will come down, but it's going to come up. But the important thing is, are you ready when it's going to come up much stronger? Because if you're going to remain the same, then you're not going to bounce back as strong as someone else who's going to innovate. So use your resources effectively. I would actually do a lot of content writing. Use this time to write a lot of content, communicate with the customer, even though it might not result in direct revenue right now, but it will be useful eventually, because that's the best way to keep in touch with your customers and also be relevant. Like, see what your company or product can do relevant to the crisis that's happening. Even though, again, don't think about revenue right now, because you're not going to get any revenue right now, but just staying relevant with your customers is what is very important.
Yeah. Because
and just apologies if I may just add to what Kishore said, especially for B2B, which is what I look at predominantly, it's a great time to collaborate and build products for the customers with the customers. So that, just to add to what Kishore said, is also a great time, especially for the B2B companies that would need this leeway, and avoidance of service disruption is also very important. So that's something that we are also focusing on. You don't want to lose the customers you have.
I also think that how you actually look at redefining your business model or your product is a direct function of how strong you are financially. So if you today have the ability to, like Kishore mentioned some time back, if you know that you have a 18 to 24 month runway, this might be the time to actually strengthen your product and figure out how to do all those projects that you had earlier put on the back burner, saying that we don't have the time, we don't have the resources. And how do you become stronger? Because if you look at all the reports, you are looking at a V or a U, worst case U and best case V rebound. Exactly. Right? And when that happens, how ready are you? Say, assuming you're looking at, say, May, June, are you going to be just caught because suddenly the demand comes and you've not really thought of your product? So but it's a function of also how much money you have in the bank. The other thing that, my view would be, one is try and collaborate with other businesses. So could be that, till some time back, you saw a certain company as your competitor. In today's time, they might be a collaborator. So for example, if you're providing part of a solution to the customer and you have this other company that does the other part, is there a way to actually come together right now and make sure that there is customer delight,
So what I see happening, Nandini, on that aspect is, after all of this said and done, I see a lot of M&A happen.
Yeah.
Some companies will see that, okay, the best way to survive is to collaborate and to merge, actually. And some companies are too small that they'll get sold to some other companies. I think that will happen a lot.
Yeah.
And the important thing is to stay strong so that you are the other side instead of being the acquirer. Right?
Yeah.
So that's why it becomes very important how strong you come out of this.
Yeah. And the other bit would be, this is not the time to try and change customer behavior. Yeah. So, you might be in a certain zone just 3 months back where you're saying, oh, it doesn't matter, the customer doesn't know, and we're going to try and change them. Right now, no. What you'll have to do is work with what the customer wants, look at what is that, what are we dealing with in a lockdown scenario, and then go, with it.
So one thing what I would say is, a lot of startups, right, when they're operational, they're trying to handle day-to-day stuff and they're only trying to react. Right. This is the time to do all those proactive things that you wanted to do, right? All those bells and whistles and the nice experience that you wanted to give. But always the priority has been the operational day-to-day stuff. So I think this is the time to build those, because while there's a crisis, but it's a great opportunity because it's kind of given you the time to reset, and come back strong and compete with your competitors who must have been ahead of you.
So, I can give you a very personal example. So I have 2 dogs, and I was trying to find, dog stuff, and most pet stores were either shut or they would say that, look, I'm not going to deliver.
Yeah.
And then there is this pet store where the owner actually drives in her own car and delivers stuff on my doorstep.
Wow.
I was like, wow, there is no way that, once this thing gets over, I'm going to go to any other pet store.
Exactly.
So I think it's that extra mile that you go and try and and the other example I can give you is that, no fruits and vegetables getting delivered nearby.
Yeah.
So here is one fruit guy says, you tell me, I will find fruits for you from the next door shop. I will find grocery from the next door shop, put all of it in a basket and come and give it to you.
Yep. Exactly.
These are things that you're doing to make sure that you get a customer for life. And what is it that we can take it out, from our businesses for it? So, the next question, and I think it's there on everybody's mind, is people. It's the first question that every startup is facing. And what we have here are 2 very different questions. One is clearly a startup that is funded very well and it has the resources, and the other which is struggling. So the first part of the question is on saying, is this the right time to hire talent at a better price, which earlier I couldn't afford? So let's take that bit first, and then I'll come to the tougher one, which we all know. So what's your view, Kishore, on it?
So I think, obviously, so I don't think the time has come yet where people are still out of job and looking for jobs, because I don't think the downsizing hasn't happened yet. But it's also a time where you can actually show that you're loyal to your employees, right? So give an opportunity for them to step up. I would actually try to work with them and see if you can give equity and make them part of your company. Because I think if you take care of them in this downtrend and in this worst time, I think they'll be more loyal, and I think you'll get just much more out of them than otherwise. In terms of hiring, obviously, the right people are always wanted, irrespective of the time, and they can always demand what they want. And there's always companies which can afford them. So I'm not sure that the right talent is going on for sale. I'm not sure about that.
But if would you have a view on hiring right now? What's your view on just saying hiring? Is it the right to hire?
I think if you have a need for talent, yes, and if you have the money. But I think I'm seeing that everyone is taking a pause. They just want to see, wait, and watch. So if you're desperate, if you're looking for a job, I think you just have to be a little cautious, because this might not be the best time for you to negotiate and get the best out of it. But on the other side, as you said, yeah, if you can afford it, I think this is the best time to hire the right talent.
Abhas, what's
so there are multiple aspects to this. So I'm in a slightly different market, right? In the UK. So I think there are multiple avenues that you can pursue, especially when it comes to people strategy, especially if you're a company that's under cash pressure, right?
Yes.
So you can look at furloughs, you can look at pay deferrals, you can look at pay reductions, you can look at ESOP conversions, as Kishore mentioned. So there are multiple things that you can look at. With regards to hiring talent, well, it would again depend if there is a definite skill set gap that you need. I think a lot of the companies who I'm looking at don't have a dedicated change management person, right? I can't put it any other way, but it is a skill set at this point in time, and you need somebody trustworthy within your team to actually manage this change that you're going through. So that is something that I generally air when I speak to companies out there, that do you have the skill set? Because a lot of people are fairly specialized, other than, you'll have a few members in the co-founding team who would be juggling multiple assets. So that is a definite skill set to look out for. The other thing that you need to think about is, at such trying times when you're asking people to, possibly take haircuts, does it make sense to hire people externally? What sentiment would that have in the wider culture of the organization? And is that something that is that a risk that really is material enough for you to undertake? But I think the softer elements is something that is really, really critical. Reputations will be made and lost in this time, especially when it comes to employees. So I think that's one thing that I consider to be extremely critical.
Yeah, and completely agree, and I think one of the challenges that you will face when you hire somebody right now is how will you actually integrate them into the company culture? Because right now is a time when you are not there face to face, nobody is there, and you would imagine bringing a new person on and then leaving them virtual. And then, it's like 3 months later, you come out of hibernation and like, oh my God, this person doesn't understand the culture at all. So I think it's a huge risk to take. Though I do think that, if you've been negotiating with someone for say several months, and now that person is there and maybe at a cost which is working, you could look at it. But I would be cautious about hiring new people right now for sure. So, this, though both of you touched upon this, slightly in your answers, I think there are a lot of questions on layoffs. So I think let's spend some time in it, little more detail, because people are asking not just on saying, should we lay off or not, but, what are the 4 5 things that one could do? What are the strategies one could use to look at layoff? Because it's not a black and white thing. Any views on it, how to do it?
So I'll take that first. I think if there's an opportunity for you to keep the existing team, but can increase the runway by asking the employees to take a haircut in exchange for an equity, uh, that would be my first preference. Right? So then you're keeping the team intact, uh, and then you're getting a longer runway, which is very critical for the company to sustain. And while you're doing that, obviously you will identify certain areas. First of all, while you're doing that, if you feel that you cannot achieve that longer runway, and the only way you can achieve that is by making some cuts in terms of people, then I would focus on sales and marketing first, assuming these are tech-based companies. Retain your engineering talent as much as possible. And then if you're doing it, do it at one stretch and let everyone know. Again, as I said, communication is very critical. Tell them why you're doing it and how it's going to make the company stronger. Uh, because you don't want to create a fear among the other people who are there with you and look for other jobs, right? So you want to at least make sure that the team is intact. Whatever team you want to retain is intact. So it's very important you communicate and you incentivize with ESOPs or whatever it is, so that they are going to be part of the growth of the company.
Abhas, any views?
Yeah, so completely echo what Kishore said. People costs should be evaluated at the absolute end. Everything else should take precedence over this. You need to ensure that you accounted for everything, your cash conversion, your expenses, your receivables, everything before actually hitting any people associated costs. Frankly, if you do have to go down that path, it's never going to be an easy way to do it. Um, uh, the one thing is you need to be honest. You need to be fairly pragmatic. I would still suggest there are multiple strategies across the board. I came across this one article where a startup founder went to all their employees, communicated, that they need to reduce people costs, and in a confidential manner asked every employee how much of a cut they can take. So everybody across the board took a cut, and everybody essentially told them how much works for them. So it was better than laying off multiple people. And as a founder, the one thing you need to do is you need to lead from the front. If you are laying off people, you need to let go of your pay as well, or take some sort of hit. You can't expect the team to do it. So I think the way you do it is also very, very important. The other bits that you need to understand is the legal aspects. I think a lot of startups don't understand the legal issues associated with laying off people. If you're giving a 2-month severance package and you need to pay that today, it might not make sense to let go of people. So I think those are certain things that people need to be very, very aware of. And if you are doing, and reality is a lot of the companies that are small and seed stage companies will be smaller. For them, it should be able to be manageable in the sense of communications. But if you have a large company of 300 people, that's when you really need to take drastic measures. I think the smaller stage companies should be able to manage this for the next couple of months purely by having honest, transparent communications, assuming there is adequate runway. If there isn't, then you have to take the hard decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've been speaking to our portfolio companies regarding this, and doing our own research on some very specific that one could do. So, sure, completely on board that if there is the runway available, people should be the last cost that you look at.
Yes.
So completely on board on that one. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of startups which don't have that runway, and hard decisions need to be made. And there are some strategies one deploy. One is to actually give people, say, a 2 or 3 month notice and say that, look, we are now redeploying you as a resource. So what you do is that even if there are teams within your company which till now have not been, say, revenue focused, right? Try and build them in a way that they can start becoming revenue focused. And then have very specific metrics that you are targeting, say in a month's time or 2 months' time. So people know that looks, and we understand that this is an uncharted territory. So it's not that you're going to put very hard numbers for people to achieve. This is not a performance metric that you're putting together, but you actually start telling people that, look, you need to start bringing in revenues, and whatever is the minimum that you can bring, you start looking. So the employee also starts getting used to the fact that, look, what I was doing till pre-corona is different from what I'm going to do from today. Yeah. So I think that resets and realigns what the team is doing, rather than everybody just saying, oh, working from home, doing the same thing. So that's one of the things. The other is that don't increase any salary right now. So there are, there could be salaries, there could be bonuses, there could be, some payouts that are there for employees. Hold that. It's not that you're not giving it, but you defer it. So you say, so deferment in our view is something that could be a good tool to say, listen, today you won't get it, but 3 months down, or whenever our revenues are back, or if we don't see a dip in revenue. So, like you were saying, Abhas, there's a collaborative approach that one starts using, but you use deferment as a tool to. The second is on saying, and it's a tough one actually, to say, can you ask the senior people in your team to give up, say, 1 week's salary? It's a tough one. But, again, you look at your team and say, oh, here are some, there's a certain level till which, that if people don't take their full money, and, I don't know, it could be 20,000 number, 30,000, depends on what, what the, what your team composition is like. And that because of it. So you don't ask that, but for your senior team members, can you ask them saying, okay, 1 week, please give off 1 week of your salary? That's, so that's the other, and that could again be a deferred. So whatever I'm talking of is a deferment that happens. If none of these strategies are working and you still have a cost pressure, and I think, Abhas, you might be seeing it more in UK, and I'm seeing that in, Europe and other countries, where you're actually saying, look, everybody works not just the full week, but maybe a couple of days a week. So you actually get people to, work, say, 2-3 days a week, and you actually pay them for 2-3 days. And you run your entire company on a reduced capacity. So some strategies, none of which are easy, and they will always have, impact elsewhere. But, I think it's just to figure out that how is it that finally, like I said some time back, you have to be alive at the end of this. Yeah. And if you're not alive, it doesn't matter what you do. we will all die together. So these are very tough. Do you want to add something to it before we move on to the next question?
No, that's fine.
Cool.
Yeah, I
So,
think you've covered most of the bits. Thanks.
So Nandini, we have time for one more discussion point and then we can move to the Q&A.
okay, all right. So I think I'm going to then move on to a very critical question, which is on fundraise. So, what is your view on fundraise in this environment? Should companies go ahead with it? Should they pause? If they have had, say, one round from the current investor and the second round is not coming, should they look for it elsewhere? What's your view on fundraise for startups right now? Abhas, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So on fundraise, honestly, it's a tricky one, right? It depends on what your runway is. The reality is, I think a lot of the VCs are also facing the same problem as you are. Most of the money that comes into the Indian VC ecosystem comes from US, China, and a lot of the public markets, right? You have LPs and family offices contributing, but a lot of the external macro factors determine VC funding as well. So I think those are certain realities that founders also need to understand. I think the reality is a lot of the VCs that I've been following do invest in cycles, so they are considering investing, but the reality is they're going to be cautious and selective, and there will be a preference to look after their existing portfolio companies first rather than going on for new investments. So I think this is something that is going to be absolutely critical. But if it is something that I think what founders can do is look at their existing investor base, to go out and raise funds should they really need it. A lot of the angel investors are also willing to help in these trying times. So don't look only at VCs. And frankly, a flat round in this scenario, if you're really desperate, is not a bad thing. Just there are certain realities that you need to gauge and just sort of prioritize with regards to fundraise is what I believe.
Sure.
So I always feel that a startup should raise money when they're in their strongest position. So unless, so it depends on if you have the runway and if you have good metrics, then actually you should wait to do the fundraise because you'll come out very strong because you have the runway and you'll have a better opportunity to do a better round. But if you're not, then obviously because it's going to take longer to do any round now, you should start right away. But you have to keep in mind that VCs are not ready to write the check right away. Right? They're very cautious. They're waiting, and they're looking for the right opportunities. So it's a very tricky situation for those companies, and I think that's what will happen. This phase will wipe out a lot of weaker companies. So you want to make sure that you're not in that bucket. You want to do everything possible to come out stronger, and you're not in that that group of companies which are not going to come out. So the best thing is to make yourself strong, make the company strong, have the right metrics, focus on the metrics, and then do the round.
So from our side on Mumbai Angels, we are not actually seeing a slowdown at all. We see a lot of companies coming up. Even our investors are not, slowing down in investments. Because I think what is happening though, and like you rightly mentioned, that the valuations will have a very different discussion right now than they did earlier. So any company that is wanting to go through this process right now should do it, but they should be aware that the metrics by which they'll be evaluated and the valuation at which they'll get the money will be different than what it was. And I also don't think it's going to suddenly jump back.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that we should be aware of, that it's not that suddenly 3 months later, suddenly we'll reach valuations which were earlier. And, like Kishore, you and I were discussing earlier, now suddenly the metrics that will get evaluated are much more real.
Exactly. So we'll not use any of those vanity metrics now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
and the reality is, if you survive this, you would come across strong. All the questions that people would have been asking about your business model would have theoretically been answered, because if you survive logically one of the toughest phases in business in the recent past, you would have hopefully addressed all questions that VCs would be asking either ways. So that's probably the positive to look at it.
Yeah.
And also one suggestion I have for all the startups: if you're in the process of raising a fund, raising a round, and you're very close to closing it, just close it.
Yeah.
Even if you have to sacrifice valuation, some of the terms, just close it, because on the other side you'll come out much stronger, and whatever equity that you'll give up now, I think you'll do much better in terms of valuation on the other side.
Though I think the founders should be ready for a longer time to closure.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
is another thing that will happen, because their face-to-face meetings will not happen. That there's a whole process, there's whole due diligence that's going to take longer.
Exactly.
So there are two founders that are there, and I recommend this even pre Corona days, but now definitely it makes sense. Thing is that one founder then should focus only on fundraise, and the other one focuses on keeping the company alive. So
exactly.
I think those. So I think Shivangi, we are our discussion is over. So if you have questions, you could just ask, and then maybe Abhas and Kishore, whoever can take it up.
Sure.
Shivangi, we can't hear you.
Could you just give me a minute to queue up the questions? I'll just get to it. So one key question that has come up is that what do you, the panelists, expect the canvas for startups? How do you expect it to change in the short term, in the medium term? Which areas do you think would be critical post this crisis? And what are the skill sets that would emerge which would be useful post the pandemic? Is there something that startups and their employees need to focus on in this duration?
Kishore, do you want to take that?
Sure.
I think, yeah.
So definitely. So I think definitely seeing. I think we have seen in the last two cycles that stronger companies have emerged and actually have been formed during the crisis. So I would expect the same thing to happen now. I think we have realized that the entire world can work offline.
Yeah.
So the digital infrastructure needs to become very strong. So I think I would see a lot of companies coming up in that space, whether it's through improving this work from home concept or the remote meetings. I would expect remote events happening. Esports probably will jump because you need entertainment, right? So esports is another thing. Then I would also expect a lot of contactless. So we are obsessed with touch, right? So we have touch screen and all that. Now you probably would see technologies with contactless. So just gestures or with machine learning, those kind of things, industries coming up. And obviously e-commerce will stay. Some of the things that will stick are the e-commerce, whether it's grocery ordering or food delivery, all of those things will stick. So the jump that they would have seen during this phase, I think will remain or it will further go up, which is a good thing. So some of the things that I can think of.
Abhas?
Yeah, so I can probably try and answer it from two aspects. One is externally, right? So I think as founders, nobody knows how behavior trends will change, right? But the reality is it will change. So I think this phase that we are in now will define the requirements of the future. So if, as Kishore mentioned, if you can crack certain bits of the change that is about to happen and identify your niche and strengthen your proposition there, it's going to be phenomenal. That, like, for example, if you take online education today, you could not have thought that school children in India would have classes via online means, right? So it's a new sector that's come about, and the reality is after this ends as well, as parents, then you might see a significant adoption. Similarly, I've been reading that in countries like China, car sales are happening online. People aren't going to showrooms. So you imagine such a high touch model, which was car sales, has moved online. So reality is there is no limit to human possible adoption. So I think the three areas that people need to be really careful about is, first, you need to have an authentic business model. A lot of companies that will survive will be the ones who actually behaved in a certain way in the pandemic. So if you look at all the big organizations, Diageo is making sanitizers, Spotify is giving 1 month free subscription. So it's how you behave in this time that's actually going to impact how you survive after or grow after. The second bit is that people are now a lot more experimental, which is what we are seeing right across industries. People are trying and adopting new means of doing things. And the last thing that I think that is really going to impact is sustainability. The consumer is going to be a lot more aware about sustainability. And that is something, and when I say sustainability, the environmental piece, you know, the awareness is going to really shift, and it's not going to be something that people are just going to think about, but they will have to build it into their business model. You can't have unsustainable packaging when you're sending your goods, for example, because people are now more aware. So these are certain bits that I think that are really going to drive the future.
Yeah. So, I was also thinking about this and saying, what's going to happen, what are the new trends and things. So something that's very close to my heart, I think a lot more of us will become vegans very soon. Yeah. Because, I think that's something that's going to impact not just India, but across the globe. And we will see more and more awareness on, how are we working with animals? How are we using animals? And, because of not just sustainability, but because of the impact of, these kind of pandemics. The second thing that we need to be, I think it's going to come out is our conversation around data privacy is going to change. Till now, all of us were a lot more worried about, the government knowing about our whereabouts, our health parameters, everything was secret. Suddenly, you will want these platforms which actually tell you whether do you have some of, are you susceptible? So, for example, if tomorrow you had an app which told you that, hey, I can tell you whether you are susceptible or not, all of us will sign up. But what are you giving up? You're giving up your data privacy, and not just your usage pattern, but actually your health metrics, right? So I think and suddenly you'll find that you'll be okay to share this with governments and corporations. So that conversation is going to change with time. The other one, yeah.
Sorry, you hit the nail on the head. So I was reading an article today where the founder of 1mg has actually said that before this, there were a lot of barriers that they faced from a regulatory perspective. Because now healthcare is essential, all of a sudden the sector is just moving at a very rapid pace. So absolutely, very, very interesting point.
And, we suddenly fast forward a lot of inhibitions we had, on what is doable, what is acceptable, what isn't. The third, I think, is a very positive thing is that technology will no longer need to be perfect. It has to work. So, you actually spend the last 7 to 8 years not allowing AR and VR to reach a certain level because we kept saying, oh, this is not perfect. This doesn't give me lifelike experience, etc. Today, all of us are working, we are having a meeting on Zoom. This is not perfect by any chance, but you say, oh, this works. This allows us. So suddenly our conversation of how ready a technology is, our barriers are going to come down, on this. So yeah, these were 2 or 3 things.
Also, what will happen, Nandini, is to answer that question, because a lot more people are online, so technologies, a lot more companies will be ready to invest in technologies around that. So that's what will happen. Right now, I think, I don't know, maybe 500 million people are online, right? Either on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype. And so you have such a large user base, then companies will spend more money to see how can they make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think in India, this is the next boom after the demonetization that we had on digital payments. So, that was the one time when suddenly Paytm went skyrocketing, right? Then we again started going towards cash. And now suddenly you say, oh my God, I need to buy my grocery and I need to pay because I need to be contactless. So this is going to give another, fillip to digital payments in the country. Yeah. Shivangi?
Yeah, sure. So what we'll do is let's move to the next set of questions, which is on fundraising, which would be at the top of the mind of most startups who are present here. So the questions revolve around valuations because as we've discussed earlier in this conversation, that the valuations would come down and they would probably need to for companies to be able to raise funds. So then in that case, are there any pointers for companies on how to arrive at valuations? Because the Excel projections have gone for a toss. They possibly cannot predict the future right now in terms of the kind of top lines they may be able to generate, say 6 months, 1 year down the line. So in this situation, how would you advise startups to go about valuing their company?
Kishore, do you want to take a shot?
Sure. So obviously, companies which have already raised a round and they're looking for the next round, if they have to cut down on their valuation, and obviously they want to avoid a down round, or so they have to be smart about how they structure the deal. So maybe they do a combination of primary and secondary, so the VC or the angels who are investing get the valuation that they want, but the company is also not giving up as much equity. So they have to do a combination of debt and secondary, and or they might give some warrants at a discount for future, so that they can avoid a down round now, but maybe give an incentive for the investors that they can invest at a lower valuation in the future, or at a huge discount in the future. Um, but at the same time, as we've been talking, it's so important to survive, right? So even if down run doesn't mean that it's bad, right? But if that's the only lifeline you have for you to raise that round and to sustain, I would still do it, because there's nothing wrong with it. Because if that gives you enough runway and that gives you enough growth capital to come out strong, I would still do it. So don't get bogged down with valuations. Maybe the valuation that you had earlier was wrong, right? So you're just resetting it.
Yep. Abhas?
Yeah, likewise, completely agree with what Kishore said. I think in India, especially, venture debt is still relatively premature. But depending on the kind of businesses, that people might have on the operating model, if they have a sticky subscription based revenue model, they can actually evaluate venture debt. We are seeing a greater adoption in India on venture debt, and in these times, if equity rounds are hard to come by, it is something that companies can consider. I know lots of funds out there have been raising, so that's one additional avenue. Secondly, grants also again is something that companies can consider depending on what sector they operate in. These are certain elements, but when it comes to raising, I think the reality is you need to build a sustainable business, right? So valuation comes after. You need to take a step back and actually look at your business model today. Is it something that will survive over the next 18 months? And if you can communicate that, I believe people will invest in you. Good companies still are getting invested. I am still part of 2 live deals, and I plan to hold on to my commitments. So I don't necessarily foresee absolute stopping of funding, because the reality is, as investors and as VCs, we also need a pipeline to go. You can't stop all of a sudden. So it's a give and take relationship. And I think what founders need to focus on is refining and streamlining and cutting out all the fat and making the business model as robust as possible, and then thinking about valuation, etc. after. I think that's the key, and that mind shift needs to change, because the days of easy money are gone. That is something that people just need to understand. There is going to be a liquidity crunch for at least another 12 to 18 months. And you need to understand how can you adapt in that environment. So it's a mindset shift more than just thinking about the fundraise side of things.
I've been in this space now for about 10 years, and I've seen, several cycles. So when I started out, all valuations used to be in single digits. And, we used to okay, and that time also we used to find companies to be very expensive. Today, I have rarely seen a company that's in the single digit valuation. And in my view, a reset was required. People, you need to ask the tough questions. You need to ask, how are you going to achieve these revenues? How are you going to make sure that you do what you are planning to do, right? And if not, what are you willing to give up? So what had happened, I would, over the last, say, 18 months or so, I thought that there was, I would not call it a bubble, but there was a froth, where there was this race to close deals without answering the right questions. I think those days are gone, which means that the founders will have to answer why, how are they going to achieve a certain thing. More importantly, any founder that's today going to sit in front of an investor and pretend that this thing is not going to impact their business are not going to get funded. You have to answer that question and say, okay, before this happened, where was I? What was I planning to do? Post this and the next 18 to 24 months, how do I plan to build this business? And I'm willing to look at a different kind of evaluation. If these things are not there, I think it's a tough uphill task. But if founders are ready to relook at their business model, have this, very open and honest conversations, I don't think there's a dearth of money at all. Like I'm saying, we are not seeing any slowdown. So there's no slowdown at the angel investing level at all. Shivangi, I think we have time for one more question.
So this time I'd like to actually delve into a specific question, because given the current developments, what has happened is even the startup world is now divided into two sets of companies, one providing services or products seen as essential, say maybe like 1mg, which Abhas give an example of, or maybe a health snack startup which promises healthy, hygienic snacks delivered to your doorstep, versus something that would be seen as non-essential, say maybe fashion technology or some other consumable which is not part of the everyday daily basket, not just the government deemed essential, but even in terms of the user's consumption pattern that can be put away to the side. So what is the advice that the panelists would have for these two sets of companies? What should be on their do's and don'ts list, or any specific course of action they could take? Because one thing that is common across the board is that supply chains are impacted, logistics are impacted. That's one aspect of it. And also the consumer behavior will change, as we discussed earlier in the conversation. So what advice can the panelists give to these two brackets of startups, essential and non-essential?
Kishore, do you want to go?
Sure. So if you're talking about discretionary spending, I think obviously with this event, I think it'll take time before that comes up, before people start spending on that. But the startups need to figure out how they're going to stay relevant and how they change their marketing strategies and the product offerings so that they make the customers reach out to their product. So if you have the same communication, similar product, I don't think you'll be relevant for the customer. So some of the things I was thinking, so maybe they can instead of come up with creative ways of marketing, creative ways of discounting the product without actually discounting. Because I was talking to someone and who owns a spa chain of spas. So it's a discretionary spending at this moment. And even when things come out, I can't imagine that people will go to spas right away. So we were debating and we said, so why not offer gift certificates that you can use for your family and for the future, but give it at a discount. So at least you kind of have a commitment from the customer that they'll come back to you, if not today, tomorrow, but you might have to give out a huge discount. So he's doing something like that. So you have to figure out a way to stay relevant and to see that it'll come back to you when the opportunity exists.
Shivangi, I think we've run out of time. Is that correct?
A couple of minutes.
We can't hear you, Shivangi.
We have a couple of minutes before we need to wrap up. So if there's something specific that
Abhas?
Yeah, so I can just take that up real quickly. I think it's a very important time to build your brand. I think the reality is for the essentials, yes, you have preferable tailwinds, right? So you need to understand, are you investing enough, and are there certain areas you need to double down on to actually expedite your growth? So I think the essentials have a different strategy they need to adopt. For the non-essentials, coming back to Kishore's point, I'm seeing similar sort of trends here. EasyJet is giving out holidays for next year discount today. Separately, a lot of B2C companies are getting content out to their customers to communicate, what is it that they're doing during the pandemic, answering FAQs. Healthcare brands can, include daily routines that they can do. You can use gamification. You can create online forums. There are numerous things that people can do today using technology, and I think founders need to, open themselves up to considering those. If you have a 300 customer base, by creating an online forum and communicating, a routine of your beauty product that can be used is not a bad thing. You can consider it. You're relevant when the market opens up. And you also need to plan for the recovery after. As soon as recovery hits, to your point, Nandini, earlier, whether if it's a U-shape or a V-shape or an L-shaped recovery, how is it that you're going to have the necessary facilities in place to sort of capture that growth? These are things that you need to be aware of. From a B2B standpoint, as I mentioned, you need to work with your customers. Again, service disruption is not an option. You need to ensure that in these times your services work. And then how can you collaborate further? Take product development ideas with them, for them. You can do numerous things today, develop new product strategies, etc., etc. So real quickly, considering the shorter time, those are some thoughts.
So I think we'll wrap up now. Excellent discussion, Kishore, Abhas. Thank you so much. And like I was saying at the beginning of the session, there are two ways that we can handle this right now. One is to be in fear and just sit there and say, oh my God, what happened? And the second is to say, what are the solutions? What are we going to do? And how do we emerge stronger at the end of this? So we at MA are going to be there throughout, and we are going to keep coming up with newer discussions, newer ways to handle this. Any suggestions, please let us know. Right now we lined up 7 discussions in this month of April. We will keep doing more, as the situation progresses. Do let us know, and thank you so much for joining. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Just to add to Nandini, our next session of MA Reboot, Navigating the New Normal, is on 13th April at 3:30 p.m. The topic of discussion is the investor's perspective on fundraising. So I know there were a lot of fundraising questions which didn't get answered specifically during this conversation, but stay tuned. We will answer them on April 13th. I look forward to seeing all of you on Monday. See you. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe, everyone.
Thank you very much.